Hello and welcome to Women in Retail Talks. I'm Christina Stidham, Digital Content Director at Women in Retail Leadership Circle. Today I'm joined by Kelly Byrne, Commercial Director at Nasty Gal, an international women's fashion brand, part of the Boohoo Group. In this episode, we're discussing her tips for leading international teams, the business and customer changes she's seen during COVID, new opportunities for innovation at Nasty Gal, and more. So Kelly, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Perfect. So to kick us off, for those who might not know all about the Nasty Gal brand, can you tell us about the business, its products, brand strategy, and what's important to the company?
Yeah, for sure. So Nasty Gal is an online-only retailer. It's actually 15 years old now as a brand, and it started in San Francisco. Started as a vintage brand with a store on eBay. And I'm sure many people know about the history of Nasty Gal, but it's evolved really drastically since then. And now we carry around 8,000 lines and we ship globally. And in 2017, the Boohoo Group purchased the brand. In terms of what we stand for, we say the brand is an e-commerce destination for risk takers. Our target market is sort of around the mid-20s. And we say, we're rooted in LA, but we live everywhere online. We do have an office based out in LA, but a lot of our business is based in the UK now. So our warehouse is here, our customer services team are here, but we do live as a sort of an online only brand, and we very much sort of focus ourselves as a California based business. In terms of our product strategy, we still try and look back to Nasty Gal of old from 15 years ago, so vintage is still a big part of what we do. And in terms of what's important to us right now, especially for this year, sustainable fashion's a big part of our agenda and really important in the terms of how we're trying to evolve the business this year and where we're trying to go.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure we'll touch on that again a little bit later. But I know that Nasty Gal, and I'm sure everyone knows, was founded by Sophia Amoruso and her girl boss mentality. So does this method of trusting your gut instincts and taking risks still play a part of the company today, or maybe inspire you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sophia was, a leader in her own right. She had a real entrepreneurial spirit, and that was what the brand was built upon. And I think lucky for us, that now really fits in well with our family, and we've kept that as a strong sort of part and ethos of our brand DNA, and it still really shines through our brand. We actively encourage our customers to take risks, push boundaries, and encourage experiences, be bold, brave. We say, we encourage flaws. It's not about being perfection, and it's not about the sort of finished article at Nasty Gal. It's all about experimentation. And I think Sophia really set the standard for that. So definitely still inspires me personally and a lot of our team. We're still a predominantly female-led business, and our team is probably made up of 80% females, and very strong females in their own right, and we really encourage their opinions in how we drive the business forward. So although Sophia's not part of our story now, it's definitely given us very good sort of roots to build upon.
Yeah, definitely. So now let's talk a little bit about you. I know that you became commercial director at Nasty Gal after holding roles at the parent company, Boohoo. Can you take us through your career history overall, your transition to your current role, and what you do in your current role?
Yeah, of course. I've actually been here for nearly 11 years now, which seems crazy because it's flown by. But I've been in a very privileged position, I think, to see the group grow so much. When I joined the business, there was one brand, there was only Boohoo. There was probably maybe 10 people in the marketing department, probably, maybe 200 across the business. And Nasty Gal was the third brand that we acquired. And now we're actually a group of 13 brands, and I think probably getting close to sort of 7,000 employees now as a group. So, amazing to see that sort of level of growth in such a short space of time. And in terms of my path along the way within the company, the titles of my role, we have sort of quite different titles in the UK to the US, but I started off as a marketing manager for Boohoo, and that developed into the international marketing manager for the brand, which was an amazing position because it allowed me to travel the world and meet different people in different territories, and I guess rolled the Boohoo brand out globally. So the US, Australia, through Europe, and just really understand different customer bases, product trends that were different globally, that the e-commerce fashion landscape globally as well, which is so different from country to country. So that was really exciting, and so sort of fortunate to be part of that growth. And then I moved into a head of marketing role, which was more sort of strategically rooted for Boohoo. And then when we purchased Nasty Gal in 2017, I moved over onto Nasty Gal and became commercial director there. And at that time, a lot of my role was focused on purchasing the business and how we really integrate it into our group. So everything from setting up the website, buying the product, setting the studio teams up, hiring staff, just sort of integrating this amazing business and giving it its new life essentially. And I think all along the way I've been really fortunate to work very closely with the founders of the group and the CEO, and they encouraged me and the rest of the team to sort of take risks, and if you're passionate and you believe in it, then just do it. And I think that's very much sort of the DNA of this group, and I think which has allowed us to sort of grow so successfully, and especially in the climate that we are in, and an e-commerce brand as well, to sort of evolving so quickly and moving so quickly to sort of capitalize on trends and movements in the market. But they're very much, if you believe in it, just go for it and take that risk, which is, as a marketer, it's great to be able to operate like that.
Yeah, and your journey through that is really impressive. That sounds like amazing opportunities.
Yeah, it's been a really fun ride, and like I said, going from one brand to 13, I feel as though, I close my eyes and another brand's joined the group, but it's amazing to see the growth, and it's amazing to see how the brands evolve and the work that goes into it, and just I think the opportunities, not very many retailers are in such a fortunate position as we are, but I think it just comes down to sort of that proactive, brave and bold approach that's allowed us to sort of progress so quickly.
Yeah, awesome. So we obviously have to talk about the pandemic, as it has changed, especially retail businesses over the last year and a half now. So I want to talk about brand creative and marketing work during COVID-19, since I know that's part of what you oversee at Nasty Gal. So how did the pandemic change the way that Nasty Gal produces your creative?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for everyone, it's changed everything that we do, and has made everybody look at things in a very different way, I guess. I suppose for us, difficulties were around the fact that our studio shut down. We had to start shooting models from their home. And, we were virtually directing shoots. We were letting models and influencers shoot their own campaign imagery themselves. And I suppose then when we were getting back to being able to actually do production, working with much more sort of skeleton teams and smaller teams to keep things really safe. But one of the beauties, I guess, of being a global business is we have teams on the ground in many countries throughout the world. So we've been able to really capitalize on different country lockdown rules and regulations. So for example, when the UK was very firmly still in a lockdown and it was less restricted in LA, we could shoot more out in LA and vice versa. And we've done that and sort of pivoted around the world to make it work. But I think the teams have done an amazing job at coping with all the changes, and it has been very reactive, daily changes, weekly changes, and just really sort of thinking about the way we work and doing things a little bit differently. But I'm really proud of how everyone's rallied together, and we haven't seen any real impact to our business from that perspective. So I think it's just about just challenging you in a different way and making you think of doing things differently. And I think actually some of the things we have done differently, we will stick with now. So a bit more sort of like remote shooting and things like that, where we've got that trust in production teams in places where we can't be. I don't see that changing really what we do moving forward, and it allows our teams to be a little bit more flexible. when we are, for example, thinking about a creative shoot in Miami and the team are in LA, they don't have to be in Miami. They can actually do things virtually now. So, some challenges, but I think some positives have come out of that situation as well.
Yeah, we've been hearing that a lot, that some of these changes that you've made, that you were forced to make, you're now saying like, oh, I think that actually works better for our teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
still gets great quality.
yeah, I think it's just a new way of working, isn't it? That everyone has sort of found what works for them.
Definitely. So staying on this topic, and of course you guys have the international aspect. How have you seen the business and your customers change during COVID? And do you think that these trends are going to stick long term? And then a second part of that is, what new opportunities are you seeing for innovation and growth?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I suppose I don't think I've spoken to anybody whose business hasn't been impacted, whether that's positively or negatively. But I think probably the biggest call out for us is just from a product point of view. Nasty Gal as a business really thrived on festivals and party and swimwear. They were our core categories. And clearly, when we were in the midst of the pandemic and everything was at its height, the product side moved very, very casual for us. And I think really that will probably stay just as more people work from home indefinitely. But I think what we're seeing is, in a really positive way, is that from March, we're seeing a huge surge in summer categories. So swimwear, summer dresses, footwear, occasions, weddings. We're getting lots of searches around festival products. So there's definitely an appetite out there in the market. And I think, our research is telling us that people are just really excited to get back out there, get back to fashion, less about sweatpants and joggers and actually a little bit more about getting dressed up, and whether that be more in the evenings or weekends and a little bit more relaxed in the day, because I guess you don't need that office wardrobe so much anymore because a lot of people are still working from home. I think we are seeing that positive uptick in sales around those sort of like core summer product lines, which was what we were experiencing in 2019 for sure. In terms of, I think, innovation and where we've had to change things, it's sort of, I think we've just had to really think about how we actually target our customers. So, targeting our message into that more home consumption, being more relatable and sort of pushing the message of how we're all in this together, and thinking about, we would do a lot of online, a lot of events, things like that, things where we talk to people in real time. We'd be meeting press, stylists, influencers in real time. We'd be showcasing the collections and really championing our product. And we haven't had the opportunity to do that. So we've had to do a lot of social content, a lot of online activity, but just sort of really creating a community and really sort of targeting our customers in their own time when they're wanting that type of content.
That's some great insight, especially for those who may not have that international viewpoint. Definitely to see how things are changing around the globe.
That's been a challenge in itself. It's great to be a global business, but when you have got every market at a different stage of lockdown restrictions easing, you're constantly adapting your messaging to that market to make it what is relatable to them. So even for a case in the States, each state being at a different level of lockdown, people being in lockdown, people being out, so we're constantly changing messaging. But I think that's really important to connect properly with our customer and make them understand that we do appreciate where they're coming from and what's happening in their own lives personally.
Yeah, I can imagine that that's extremely challenging to keep track of everything. But it sounds like you guys have done a great job.
I hope so. It's been a fun ride. It's been interesting.
So speaking a little bit more about the international aspect, but from the different side of it, as far as internally and your leadership. So I know a big issue that a lot of leaders have faced this past year is getting used to managing teams remotely. And I know that you lead international teams at Nasty Gal. I want to know, is most of your team remote, and have they always been? And do you have any tips that you can share for other leaders who are adjusting to remote or international team management?
So the teams haven't tended to be remote, and at the minute it's a bit of a mixed bag really. So some of our teams are in the office because things like our studio, for example, is a 5-day-a-week operation. So those teams are in and sort of adhering to COVID guidelines. And then we've got other team members who are not required to come in the office because they can do their jobs from home. So we keep them at home. But I think it's been really tough. So even though I'm based in the UK, we've got teams in Europe, Australia, and a large team based out in LA. And I'd normally travel every 3 months to be with those guys. And I think for me, I'm a real people person and I really thrive off working side by side my team. So although Teams and Zoom's been great, it has been a challenge, and I think the best thing for me and advice I would give is just being really clear in communication and expectations, because I think we take for granted just having office conversations and everyone being in the loop with a certain project. But when, 80% of the people who are involved in that project are sat at home, you can easily sort of bypass a person and then they're not clear on what that sort of project looks like or the communications around it and the expectations. But I think one of the biggest thing for us has been that we're a really social business. Probably 60-70% of our workforce are sort of probably under 30, and we've not been able to have any social events and things like that. So I think the challenge has been keeping that energy going. But for me, little things like personal check-ins with people, just taking that time out to make sure that they're okay. How's your day going? How are you managing to have a work-life balance? Like, how can we support you better? We've done things like sending little care packages out to people and chocolates, and for National Rosé Day, we sent everybody a bottle of rosé wine home. So it's just little things like that, just to sort of show you care, make sure that you're there. But I think, like I said, clear communication I think is really key, and just being super organized and making sure that everybody is in the loop at any given point, because especially in a business like ours, it's so fast moving. It's really easy to sort of overlook a really critical part of a project and somebody not being aware of things.
I love that. I'm sending a bottle of rosé for National Rosé Day. Where was mine?
We'll get you one in the post.
That's so fun. Yeah, but that's definitely a struggle. Keeping that like kind of culture going as everybody is dispersed,
and it is,
especially globally.
It's a massive part of the culture here, is that social side. So it's so important for us to keep that going as much as possible remotely. But hopefully we're not too far away from getting everybody back and having some kind of social events with our teams where people can be together. Because our teams are telling us, like, we want to come back in the office, we want to see our friends, we want to just be sort of having those little chats over the water cooler and that sort of thing. So I think it is important for them as well to get back into the office.
Yeah, I think we're getting close, so we can definitely look forward to that. 2 more questions for you. Another thing that we talk about a lot at Women in Retail is how young women who are looking to climb the ladder as you did, how they could do that. So do you have any tips for young women who are ambitious and looking to climb the ladder into leadership roles within retail?
Yeah, I mean, my training, my education is in marketing, and post university I didn't work in retail. I actually worked in hospitality marketing, but I suppose I got some great experience there and learned a lot of principles that could be used in any industry. And I think for me, there's 3 key things that stand out. Is, very cliche, but I firmly believe that you get out what you put in, and that hard work pays off. So, when I was an early graduate, I was doing tons of work experience for various different types of businesses, across multiple sectors, just to really understand the industry and what is important in a business, in a workplace. And you never know where that will take you. And from graduating university, I then got roles with a lot of the people who I did the work experience with. So I firmly believe, if you put the sort of effort in and you make the contacts, then it will pay off. I think secondly, listening is so important. Soaking up information, learning from peers, just listening to to others. I think you learn so much from that, of just etiquette in the workplace, advice, experience, learning from much more experienced people than yourselves. And then I think seizing opportunities, especially in a business that I've worked in for the last 11 years, there's so many opportunities. And I think in a lot of retailers, especially e-commerce retailers, where it is, like I was saying, it's so fast moving, there's so many opportunities at any given time. And I think, put your hand up, get involved, take the extra responsibility on. And you just never know where that will lead. It could sort of take you down a path that perhaps you didn't think you would be on, but actually it could be the right path for you. So I would sort of say any opportunities that come up, whether it's opportunities to be on certain projects or committees or boards or things like that, always sort of try and get involved, because you just never know where that will lead to.
I completely agree with everything you just said. That is excellent advice. So for my last question, what's next for you personally and at Nasty Gal?
Oh, well, I mean, the world's our oyster, I guess. I think from a business sense, it truly is that, we sort of say we're operational across 5 territories globally, but you can purchase Nasty Gal from pretty much anywhere in the world. But for me, we can move the business into any market globally. So I'd see sort of international expansion on the horizon. And I think a big thing for us this year is just some kind of level of normality. So like I was saying before, starting for people to start buying festival outfits, holiday season, nobody's really had a vacation this year properly. So what does that look like? So I'm excited to see a bit of a normal trading year, if that's possible. And I think from another product thing for Nasty Gal is just on the sustainable side. So we are really pushing our sustainability agenda and hoping that in the next year, at least 20% of our product will be sustainable. So that's going to be a big product moment for us, and something, it goes back to our roots, I guess, of being that sort of vintage brand and what we want to build upon. And I think personally, just sort of, keeping the wheels spinning for Nasty Gal and just keeping us moving and growing all the time. We are a group with a very sort of strong ethos for growth. So it's just keeping that going and pushing the boundaries and pushing Nasty Gal to where it needs to be, and just hopefully seeing the back of COVID. I think that would be nice for all of us.
Yes, completely agree. And that sounds like really a lot of exciting things. That's awesome. You guys are focusing so heavily on sustainability that I agree that that's really important. And I think a lot of consumers really hold that in high regard, especially your younger consumer base.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the feedback we're getting from our research is how important this is now. And it's been really important for us. And, I feel like we're at a really great position now where, we can actually democratize sustainable fashion and make it affordable for young people, which is where we want to go. Our customer is price conscious. So I think we've got a great opportunity as a group to use our size and scale for good, and allow our customer base to buy sustainable fashion in an affordable way. So that's where we're trying to drive the business heavily, and I think it's just really exciting. I firmly believe that this is where the future of retail will go. So great to be part of it.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Women in Retail Talks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com/podcast for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.